And we are streaming. Awesome. Okay, good stuff. So, passion fighters, if you are here, give us a hashtag live in the comment section, and give us a hashtag replay if you are here in the replay. So yeah, it's Dan here from Passion. We're in the middle of the Expert Unleashed challenge right now. We've got over 300 people going through who started, a little bit less than 2 weeks ago. You guys have just reached the end of week 2 and are going into week 3, where we have people starting to launch their offers for the first time. And that is a scary time. We've all been there. I get super scared putting myself out on social media in front of my friends and family, and I'm scared what people think. And I'm just aware that maybe you guys are going through the same thing. Therefore, I wanted to I asked Allie to join, who has been in this community for a while, and you've probably seen doing phenomenal things. So thank you so much, Allie, for giving us the time. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah. So for those watching, if you have questions for Allie, then please put them in the comments and we'll get to them during the call. If you're watching the replay, drop the comments there anyway, the questions, and we'll get back to you as well. So first question, Allie, because we're going to dive into your journey and everything, but it would be great to first get context of where you're at actually right now. Like, what are you doing? What is your project?
Okay, so right now I'm in the middle of my round 2 challenge group. So they're just finishing up their week 3 of my second group. I'm planning to launch again to do a 3rd round of challenge. That's where I'm at right now, at kind of at the same time as I'm refining this and kind of shifting my ideal client based on how things have gone in the world. I'm also kind of tackling the marketing side. So really kind of running a challenge, but since all the content is there, it takes less management. So I can give some time to like traffic and marketing also.
Okay, amazing. And I'm really excited to jump into like the nuts and bolts of it. But first, can you explain a bit about what your app actually is and what problem it solves?
Yeah, so I teach circus. So I teach aerial arts, aerial rope and fabric mostly. And I have 2 babies. I had my last daughter in July. So coming back to that, coming back to training afterwards, there was just no direction for aerialists to get back into the air after taking a break, whether that be from a pregnancy or an injury or work or anything that got them grounded, how to re-entry in a safe way. So there was a total void of resources, and I had done some mobile fitness apps, and that was the only thing that really got me motivated and got me back on track. So when I realized there wasn't anything specific for aerialists and circus artists, I decided to create that. And I was so thrilled that I came across your webinar like in that exact moment, because it really came at the right time.
Okay, awesome. And one of the most common objections people have when they go through week 1 of the challenge is I talk for like basically a full week about being very specific in solving a specific problem and helping a specific kind of person. And you've really taken that. I don't know if, I mean, you probably had that idea in your head already, but you're definitely living in alignment with that,
Yeah.
which is like, it's specific to like just people involved in circus, like aerial stuff, right? So I'm not an expert in that at all. I know almost nothing about it, but it sounds really cool. So I'm probably not in your target group, right? So therefore people might look at that and think, oh, well, Allie's cutting out 90% of the population, 99% of the population. Why is it, do you think, that it works for you being specific?
Well, for me personally, I think that the reason why I've been so successful with my challenges is that I am a product of my product. And that kind of gives that social proof that people believe in it because they see my results. Yeah, what's nice about my program is because I offer like 2 sets of workouts, the apparatus that like the workouts that people can do in a studio on equipment, but I also offer home workouts. So that was just something that I had offered initially just by chance. So the home workouts are accessible to anyone. Like they have a circus focus, but they are more accessible to anybody. Yeah, sorry, I think I lost my train of thought there.
That's good. Do you think the people in your community, like the people going through your challenge and using your app, are they mainly aerialists already?
Yes.
Okay, and then so what problem is that app solving for them?
Well, initially with the first round, it was really geared towards like aerialists who were coming back postpartum. So it was very
Wow.
specific.
Wow.
And that kind of expanded to people who had aerialists who had taken a break because they had gotten a real job and didn't have as much time to dedicate it. So it expanded a little bit, but the main focus was like aerialist mamas who didn't
Yeah.
have any time. Like when I did my ideal client worksheet, like I just had a
Yeah.
picture of like this like frazzled mama just like not having any time to work out or do anything creative. But it has
Okay.
expanded a little bit.
And so it's expanded, but it's still aerialists, right? The people joining. I think
Hmm.
that's really interesting. So it's aerialists. You're giving you've got these at-home workouts that are really accessible to anyone, but it's still mainly aerialists. And I think that this is a really good demonstration of the fact that quite often people come to me and say like, "But Dan, what I do works for everyone," which is true, and I'm not, and I never sort of I never say that that's not the case. However, you can't appeal to everyone. So even though it might serve everyone, if you can't appeal to them, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So that's really interesting that you have like these workouts that could work for anyone, but because you're targeting that one niche, you can really resonate with them.
Exactly. And
Um,
what's been interesting is a lot of my challengers have like recruited their significant others or friends who aren't aerialists to do the workouts with
ah,
them. And that's been good feedback and that they are accessible.
okay, really cool. So maybe you could tell me and the people watching, and by the way, hello, I can see you guys, Jose and Agnes and Angela and Deb. How's it going? Ask your questions. Ali has been through this process now. She's going into the third time, and so you're in very, very safe hands. Anything you want to know, then ask them in the comments, and we'll get to them. So I'm really curious about your journey from if you cast your mind back to that first time when you first saw we were probably advertising the webinar and you saw that. If you could take us from that first moment through that sort of first challenge and your emotional journey is the thing I'm most interested in.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably for about 4 or 5 months before that, I had had this idea that creating a mobile fitness app was something that I wanted to do. And I had done some light research to kind of see what would be involved in that and was just like totally overwhelmed with the cost and commitment and had really given up on it because I felt like it wasn't something within my reach in this moment. Um, that said, I was already trying to create my own little challenge group like before I saw that. So I had like a beta test group of my own students that were already kind of testing material and I felt confident with it. So when I came across the webinar, I really was just absolutely thrilled. Like it was almost this feeling of like, this is too good to be true. I remember talking to like my mom and my partner about it, just being so excited and like really taking it seriously and blocking off that time to watch it and watching it and just being like, oh my gosh, like this is what I want to do and really resonating with that all in message. Um, I mean, and I'll be honest, like there was part of me that was like a little apprehensive. That was like, is this a scam? Like, is this something that I'm gonna just be like, that's not gonna work? But I really like I took a leap of faith and I'm really glad that I did because I couldn't have been more happy with the results.
And I don't know how much you want to share, but as you've been going through these challenges, we've seen the results that you've had in terms of bringing clients in and generating revenue for your app and everything. Can you share a little bit with the people watching about like the results you've been able to get by going through this process?
Yeah, I think for the first round I did, and I think that part of the success with that was the timing, like coming right after the new year when everyone is like really in that mindset of committing to something. And because when I did my launch, I think I had 60 applications. Like it was completely overwhelming, to be honest. Like my Calendly thing was just like stacked. And like it's a good problem to have, but I was like, I have my kids at home, I run a business on the side, like, and it was literally taking up every second. And like, I think I had one day where I had 9 strategy calls. It was just completely bonkers, like one after the other. So it was great, but it was really, I finally capped it at 20 because I didn't have the time, actually, the hours in the day to create my content and do the rest of my scheduled calls. So, like I said, a good problem to have. And so I think I ended up with 22 challengers in my first round, made over 4 grand. I was charging 197. And then my second round, I think I have 12 again.
Okay. And are you charging the same, or did you increase the price, or?
I'm charging the same.
Oh.
Mainly because I had people on the wait list from the first round, and I wanted to honor that rate. And ultimately, I'm glad that I did, because my launch was like literally the day that I started was the day that shelter in place was basically announced.
Okay.
So I would have felt bad charging more. And
makes sense.
What I did in that situation is I actually like was very open with all my challengers, and I was like, hey, look, like I know this is happening and you're not going to have access to your studios, and like you're not going to get out of this what you might have thought you were. And I offered them the option of like having it refunded, and only 2 of them did, but it felt like the right thing to do for me.
Totally right. Cool. That's great. That's really great. So I'm curious also, and by the way, I think Liam is in the comments who's working with Passion. Liam, if you could summarize the questions, because some of them are quite long, and so I'm not going to get a chance to read them as we go. But just summarize them, maybe send them on Slack. That'd be great. So Allie, I'm curious about your biggest insecurity actually going through the process, from maybe in your first launch as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely kind of an introverted person. Like, it's funny because I feel totally confident teaching in person and performing on stage, but my social media presence is kind of like, so putting the launch out there was a little bit nerve-wracking, but as soon as I just kind of came back to that place of being like, okay, like I've come this far, I put in all this work, these late nights, like I'm just gonna do it, Dan tells me. And just went for it. And the response was so positive that like the second launch was a breeze. Like I didn't even have to think about it.
Do you have a big social media following? What's that like?
I don't. I have like, I think I had just over 1,000 followers on Instagram, and I didn't have a Facebook before I did the Ultimate Unleashed Challenge. Like the Expert Unleashed Challenge, I actually created a Facebook just so I could be a part of that community. So I had 0 Facebook friends.
Wow. And was it, were you concerned that there would be tumbleweed and you would launch this thing and no one would care?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because that's how most of my posts are.
Right. And I think we all feel that as well. And a lot of people come through the webinar and they're like, hang on, Dan, like if I do this launch, how is anyone going to care? Because when I usually post, I don't get like a ton of engagement and people asking me, like, basically people think if they don't have people throwing money at them that it doesn't work, but that they're not going to be able to be successful with it. But of course the reality is that all we're really doing is solving a problem. So we're identifying who these people are, we're figuring out what problem they have, how we can solve it. And as soon as you put in front of someone, here's the problem you have, here's the solution that we, and the journey and this sort of bridge we can take you over, it's a different game than just like posting a photo on social media and seeing if people comment on it,
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Interesting. Okay, and I'm curious about the practicalities of filming content, because a lot of people get to the stage which they're not at yet in the challenge, but they will be sort of in the next week or two, where they start thinking about putting content into the app. And
Hmm.
for you especially, given that it's an aerial, there's aerial content in there as well.
Yeah,
um, what advice can you give people watching about like how to produce content and that sort of thing?
totally. That's a great question. I mean, for me, since my workouts were so specialized, I couldn't use any of the provided content that you gave, like the videos and photos. So I had to really create all that myself, which was really overwhelming. But the way that the challenge is set up so that you only have to create for the first week, and then you're just doing 1 week at a time, made that so much more manageable. So right before the challenge launched, I created my first weeks of content, and it was like I have a studio that I teach out of, so I was lucky to have that as a place to film, but it was not high tech. It was me in there, just with a tripod, like pushing play on my phone and running and doing the exercise and running back and pushing stop. Like
Oh,
it was pretty hilarious,
we've all
actually.
been there.
Yeah. Then I did all of the editing like on my phone, like probably while I was nursing my baby late night, just like doing the like slider edits, like really not making it complicated. So just keep it simple is that's my advice.
Totally right, totally right. And yeah, I see a lot. If we show an example that's maybe been professionally produced, to people think, okay, now I need professional production, but of course the reality is not the case, right?
Yeah.
How about with actually deciding what would be in your program? So we had a question from Jose that was about like how do you create a program that's in line with your message, and I guess also that solves the problem, because you have to think, what do I get them to do the first day, the second day? Like, how did you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, in my beta test group, just with my students, like we always do a conditioning warm up as part of our class. So I had been kind of experimenting with what was accessible and like in terms of how many reps was like reasonable to give people. So it was a little bit of trial and error with that. But really just the exercises that I enjoy doing and that keep me motivated and excited and that I feel really targeted what I wanted my clients to be targeting. So like a lot of core and a lot of arms and a lot of cardio because that's something that the generally airless don't train at all. And then keeping the workouts really short because a big message in my launch was like, for my initial launch was like, you don't have time. Like, this is like, we're going to keep these short and sweet. We do 3 workouts a week. Like, let's just keep this efficient so you can maintain trajectory towards your goals because consistency was the main thing that I was stressing. Um, yeah, so did that answer your question?
Totally did. Yeah, thank you. We had another question from Agnes that was about. So it says, "Do you have? Sorry, did you have your full program ready before you started to advertise it?" Agnes is just going into day 11, almost ready to do sales calls, but content isn't finished. Is that an issue?
I would say like I had kind of a framework, like an outline of content, just because I had done kind of a trial run before. But I would say it's not really necessary because in each week, when you get feedback from your clients, that's when you have the opportunity to kind of tweak the program as you move forward. So even things that I had planned, I ended up changing. So just kind of take it 1 week at a time, like take the feedback and implement it and like don't stress out too much about the whole program and just 1 week at a time. But it is scary.
Totally.
Like it is totally scary to be selling a program that's not finished. Like I can relate to that.
Yeah, I know, and I relate as well. But as you've just said, right, the whole thing is that you're going to learn from the feedback, and you're going to make a better program
Mhm.
because of the feedback. So really, the best way to serve your clients is to sell them something they have that you haven't built yet. If you
Totally.
build it, it won't really serve them, right?
Yeah, and this idea of the like being really open about it, like it's a co-creation and people were really excited to give feedback and to see their ideas put into action. So I think that it's set up in a really interesting way that it grows very organically.
Mm. Yeah, people love being part of something and being able to contribute, right? I read once that that people assume that in order to gain influence over someone that you should do something for them. But actually the opposite is true. If you ask someone to do something for you and they do something for you, you're gaining influence over them, which I think is really interesting. So getting people involved in the co-creation process is actually a benefit to people rather than a downside, you know?
Yeah, and I had talked to a few other friends who run online fitness business, and I was like, this feels crazy, like, and like hearing her tell me, like, no, this is like a normal thing was really reassuring.
Cool. Awesome. All right. We have more questions. So Nicole is asking, did you start working on your app at the same time as going through the 30-day challenge? Because for those who don't know, the challenge is structured such that week 1, you're defining your dream customer. Week 2, you're defining your offer, not building it, but just defining it. Week 3, you do your launch and you sell and you get your first founding members. And then week 4, you actually build your app. But of course, everyone who's already a member of the platform has access to build their app. At any time, right? They don't have to wait until day 24 or beyond. So Nicole's question is, did you simultaneously start building it, or did you wait until day 24?
I think I mostly waited until day 24 because I know you say not to jump ahead. But I think I might have gone ahead and just done some of like the graphics, and just because that felt really creative to me. So I don't know if I would recommend that, but it did make things like it got me excited about it because I knew like we were putting it all together later.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. There's some more questions coming in, but I'm curious that you've done a launch before this whole crazy time with the COVID-19 outbreak, and you've done a launch in sort of, as you said, on the verge of when it started getting really serious in the States, and now you're going into another group. So my question is, how do you think, or how are you changing your marketing message and your product given these new circumstances we find ourselves in?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not marketing just to postpartum mamas.
Okay.
Kind of not stressing the whole like you don't have that much time because people have nothing but time.
Right. Crazy, huh?
Yeah. Um, I'm really kind of, again, I'm kind of using myself as a model for the ideal client. Like, where am I at with my training? Like, and being really honest with the emotions that I'm feeling. So, like, I'm feeling really unmotivated. It's like, what really is the point of training circus right now? Like, I don't have an answer for that. Like, I'm feeling anxious about how things are. Like, we don't know how things are going to play out. So just really acknowledging those feelings and being like, well, all we can do is like take care of ourselves physically and mentally. And if this program can create some structure and normalcy in people's lives right now, I think that's a big positive, and that's something worth stressing.
Awesome. You've hit the nail on the head of what I think marketing really is about, which is meeting people where they're at, understanding, that a few months ago saying you've got no time was the perfect message because that's how they felt, but right now it's not going to resonate. And we saw something similar in our marketing when it was the date when Trump did a speech from the Oval Office where he closed the borders to Europe, and it was that day when everything on our marketing side just fell off, and for about a week, basically it was like a deserted, like nothing was happening, right? Nothing was working. We completely changed our approach to say, you know what, people are now in this new mindset that they've got new problems, and the product itself is perfectly suited to solve those problems, but people won't know that unless we meet them where they're at. And we changed that and evolved it, and as people in the community have probably seen, it's been exploding in the last few weeks. Now people understand that it solves the problem where they're at right now. Cool. So we have some more questions. Thank you so much for answering them. There's a lot of comments I can see from people saying that this is giving them a lot of security and confidence because they were really nervous about producing content, about launching, about doing the calls. Like, it's easy to forget how scary that is before you've done it the first time.
Totally.
You know?
And one thing about the calls is like I think you mentioned this about like the first one. I was really lucky that my first call was with actually a former client of mine. So that was like, oh, okay, someone that I know. But it's so true. Like by after a couple of them, I really was enjoying doing them, and just it was so interesting to hear people's stories and give them that value and just let them tell you their story. And it's really like you're interviewing them, like make it like that dynamic, like you want, like they want to be in your program if they've come that far, and they want to convince you
Yeah.
why they're a good fit, and so just listen.
Totally right. Totally right. Oh, I need to record this and put it in the program and like tell everyone this is gold. Agnes asked, which social media platform do you have the most marketing and sales success from?
Probably Instagram, but like I said, I only had just over like 1,000 followers. I think the reason for that is I do have like a good amount of name recognition in my field and in my community, even though I don't have a huge social media presence. Um, and I think that especially with the first round, my ideal client was very much represented in my followers. So that helped. I also kind of just as an experiment did some posts of my launch in like kind of cold groups like that I had no connection to with, but were like aerial groups. And I had some responses to that, but I think the bulk of it was from Instagram.
Awesome. Nice. Thank you. Carmen was asking, Carmen asks, can I use this app for anything other than fitness? I feel like I'm an imposter. And I'd like to ask you about this, Ali, because what you said earlier is, so I know that in a sense you are doing fitness, right? But it's very different than like, you know, it's aerial is very different than just regular fitness. And you said that you couldn't use any of the templates that we provided, etc. Mm-hmm. Something I want to say about this to Carmen and anyone else watching is we focus our marketing quite often on fitness because, as I teach you through the whole challenge, you have to be specific with who you're targeting and what problem you can solve for them. The platform, as people will know if they've been here some time, is designed to be agnostic. It will work across different verticals. So it's essentially an e-learning app, right? It's an app with videos. You can use the interactive. We call it a workout widget, but really it's just a list. It's like a list, right? So if you're where some people might use it for like squats and sit-ups, if you're in cooking, you could use it for chopping the onions and cooking the onions, etc. So yes, you're in the right place. But Ali, my question for you around that is you had to mold the what we teach you in the challenge to be relevant to you, right? So what were your challenges around that, or how were you able to take what we taught you and think, okay, how does this work for me?
Yeah, I mean, I knew pretty early on that I wanted to just offer workouts in that kind of list format, but I have in the beginning I kind of was like, well, should I do it as a lesson? And like the way to lay it out, like there's a lot of options. But kind of the easiest for me was to just use the interactive widget with the workouts. But it's true, like I've recommended this to yoga teachers and dancers and even my partner who does music production. I've been like, you should do this and create a challenge for people who like, for artists, for musicians who can't seem to finish their first album. Like the platform is totally versatile.
Love that. I'm a musician as well, and like I would love this platform for that. It's yeah, I agree. I just saw Carmen said in the comments that that actually cooking is Carmen's expertise. That was a guess, so I'm glad, and that you'll start with that. That's really cool. Okay, let's see. So we have Cassia here asking, how do you find clients? Sorry, how do you find clients doing client sale? Sorry, need to double read this. Okay, so I think the question is to do with how do you find the clients that you then do the calls with, and then as a follow-up, do you enjoy them? Are they tough? What's your strategy?
So for the first part is how to get basically book the calls.
How to get them? Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so when in all my launch, I had my quirky phrase, and every person who commented, I would DM, and I created this like epic spreadsheet that said like the name, their Instagram name or Facebook name, like whether the prospect was on Instagram or Facebook, whether I'd sent a DM, like what, like if I had followed up. So I really created this like really kind of obnoxious thing to keep track of all of my inquiries. Um, so anyone who DM'd me, I then sent the application, and I would click a box in my spreadsheet that's like, okay, application sent. And then when they filled the application out, they're supposed to book a call. So I was also keeping track of people who filled out the application but didn't book a call. So I had like all of these metrics that were like, okay, keeping track of anyone who's shown any interest. Um, so then they book the call and it goes right into your calendar. If I had needed to follow up with people, like, and I did with some, I just would go back a step, and like people who did an application but didn't book a call, I'd email them and be like, hey, like, do you want to do the next step? Or I'd go back to people who I had DM'd, but they had never filled out the application. So I really like was very thorough. And then I
That's
had all
awesome.
these contacts available for when I launched the second round. So I actually had a pre-registration like 3 days where I emailed everyone who was from the first round that I had kind of waitlisted, and I was like, hey, like I'm doing a pre-registration. I'll give you 3 days to book a call before I open up to the public.
Okay. And the follow up from Cassia was do you enjoy them? Are they tough? What's your strategy when you're speaking to them?
Yeah, everyone was really pleasant. I think I only had one person that was kind of like I could tell they were very skeptical of me and the whole thing. And like when I got that energy from someone, I was like, well, I don't want this person anyway. Like I don't want to deal with this person for 6 weeks. So it really is like you're interviewing them and you have that options. Like if someone feels really high maintenance and difficult, like you don't have to work with them.
Totally, totally. And many times, experts in the community, when they get that vibe, they say, you know what, I think it's not for you, because you can use certain strategies to, convince someone and manipulate them, but that's not really, it's
Yeah,
not going to serve you, and it's not going to serve your client in the long run.
exactly.
Totally. Okay. There's, by the way, when you were just talking about how you tracked these metrics through the funnel, like what platform they came through, have they booked a call, etc. I was writing down, I need to create a template for this to give it to people, because
Yeah.
that's not yet part of the challenge. And so, number one, if you could anonymize the data or delete the data and send me the template, I would love
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Thank you. And number two, what I'm doing right there is also what I teach in the challenge, which is like, if I would have built the perfect challenge from day one, it would have included what Allie just told me, but I can't foresee everything, right? So all I can do is do my best, get it out to the world, and then smart people like Allie are going to say, hey, it would be better if it had this, and if you're lucky, they'll even build it for you and then send it to you. Awesome, thank you. So then Agnes asked, how many exercises do you offer weekly in your programs? So Agnes is teaching prenatal Pilates. It sounds very specific. I like that. I'm planning to offer 3 to 4 per week. Should I fill the whole week up with workouts, or what do you suggest?
I offer 3 week. Well, all right. So the goal for my challengers is that they do 3 workouts per week. In each workout, there's like 4 circuits, and each circuit has 3 to 4 exercises that they repeat twice. Um, yeah, so for mine, it's kind of complicated because I offer like a lot of different options for my aerialists. Each week they actually get 9 workouts, and they are supposed to choose 3. So there's 3 workouts that are specialized in vertical apparatus, so aerial rope or aerial silks. three workouts that are specialized in bar apparatus, so trapeze, lyra, or pull-up bar, and then three workouts that are specifically at home, no equipment. So the clients are able to kind of mix and match where they are and what they have access to, depending on what they want to train and where they are. So they have a lot of options, and some of the challengers right now are like going so hardcore and like doing 5 workouts a week at home because they have the time. But I don't think that's necessary. Like if you offer 3 workouts a week, that seems like a very reasonable expectation for people.
Cool. Thank you. And then to wrap up, because you've been so kind and generous with your time, and you told me, I think before we went live, that you've got your 3-year-old watching cartoons, right? Hopefully keeping busy.
Yeah, they've been good.
Okay, awesome. So I really appreciate the time. I know that everyone else does. I can see from the comments already, and I'm sure on the replay there'll be even more. So thank you. Maybe 2 more brief questions. One is, have you ever felt imposter syndrome? A lot of people share that they feel like, am I really, expert enough to bring this out to the world and to ask people to pay for it and things like that? Have you struggled with that at all? And if so, what advice would you give to people who are maybe going through that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that all the time. And I mean, I've been doing what I do for over 10 years, so I'm definitely well known and recognized in my field and respected. And even so, like putting something out there, like I feel like, oh, like people are gonna judge me or critique me or be like, what is she doing? But ultimately, like the responses that I've gotten from my challengers have been so overwhelmingly positive that I think it's a process, that it's normal to have these feelings, but the more feedback that you get and more like, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, people like, they make you believe in yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. I see that as well. I get this these 2 huge extremes in what I do, because on the one hand, when people join and, people like you and others who get these great results and then they're very lovely and grateful, and that's very heartwarming, gives me confidence to carry on doing what I'm doing. And then on the other extreme, we run ads that are seen by a couple of million people every few weeks at the moment. And have you got something?
No, someone's singing.
Yeah, people are seeing these ads all the time, and there's a lot of negativity as well, right? So I get these extremes, and I have to. It's a difficult like mental balance to try and keep keep positive about that when you also have the negative stuff.
Mm-hmm. And I had a couple comments that they weren't really negative, especially when I posted in the the groups that I wasn't a part of. Just comments like, excuse me. Like I had asked in one post, like, if we work together, like, what's the one thing that you'd want to achieve? And one person wrote back and was like, that's so arrogant of you to like assume that you could solve my biggest problem. And I mean, you just have to like not let it bother you. It's like if someone is going to give you like attitude, then you don't want them as a client anyway.
Totally. Yeah, totally right. It's super tough, and those negative comments stick. I don't know if it's the same for you. They stick with you much more than even you could get 100 positive ones, right?
It's true.
Yeah. I've had one more question come in, which hopefully is a quick one from Mask, who said, like, when asking for payment via Stripe, it seems a bit weird just asking for their credit card details and stuff. How do you take payment? How do you get over that paying hurdle?
The first round, it was very much everyone did Stripe, and it's just like people, you say your price, and they're kind of like, oh, like that's a great value. That sounds great. And I'm like, oh, like, well, like if you want me to save your spot, I can take your credit card right over the phone. And usually they're like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Get the credit card. Like people are way like, once you get to that point in your call,
Yeah.
like, if they're ready, they're ready.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Awesome. And the very final one from me, which is, if you were walking down the street, you bump into someone and they say, oh, Allie, I saw you on that Facebook Live with Dan, and I was thinking about doing this challenge, but I'm a bit skeptical, like you were at first, which is completely understandable. What would you tell that person? Like, imagine you just bumped into me. What would you say?
Oh, just do it. Just commit yourself to this program and really, like, you will see results. Like, it's laid out in such an accessible way that you like some of the challenges are challenging to like wrap your head around, but they're very accessible and they deliver results. So definitely do it.
That's awesome. That last bit's just me asking for a compliment to make me feel all warm and fuzzy. But now it's my turn. Allie, it's amazing to see when you go through this process. I've seen you in all 3 of the times you've been doing the challenge, sharing, and you are just so on it. You're so structured, and it's a joy for me to see, because the way that you work with the content, with the platform, is just exactly how it's designed to be worked with. And the success you've had gives me and our team so much energy. So thank you for being you, and thank you for taking the time and sharing all of this this value with people. Yeah, it has. And yeah, good luck with the new launch. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Speak soon.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.